Hello, and welcome back to Key Comic Universe. Today I'm going to be talking about the type of books that I invest in. So, first off, I will not be talking about specific titles or maybe even specific characters. I probably won't be talking about that today, but instead I'll be talking more generally and in more broad terms the type of books that I do personally invest in and what I go after and why I search for those books. So before I get into it, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, you should do it. It would be pretty cool. Plus, then you'll get notifications on when I release new videos. And also check me out on Instagram at Key Comic Universe, where I talk about other comics, talk about other topics, where I do my sales, and so forth. So, let's get right into this video. So first up, I've already got a couple of books up, but the first type is minor keys, mainly minor first appearances of less popular or less valuable books, and usually these I would buy typically a few more copies of just because there is always potential there. But the other reason is it's just solid. A lot of them are good stories or good characters that do have future potential, and basically what I do is just look into characters I enjoy, stories I enjoy, and go out there and get the first appearances of those characters. And because these books are affordable, you can get more copies of them, and you can typically find them more easily. So they're more readily available. And yeah, this is just a couple of examples. So for example, first appearance of Edom Fessy with Secret Warriors issue number 4, and then Wolverine number 20, which is the first appearance of Gorgon. Both of these books are very affordable. So yeah, that's just the first couple of books. Okay, so next one, and I don't really do this or collect this type of book as much as others, but that is variants and second printings. So the reason I go after variants is, of course, the art is cool or people have a lot of interest in it. It's just good to pick up. It's good to have a copy or two of that book. And then for second printings, typically those print runs are a lot lower, especially if you go back just a few years. Nowadays, second prints, a lot of the more recent ones haven't really gained that value yet. But if you go back 10, 15 years, you're definitely going to see a bigger bump in value for those books. Maybe not as much as the first print, or in some cases maybe more than the first print. But second printings and variants are still worthwhile picking up if you enjoy them. And first time I really enjoy second printings, typically, you get a different cover, or you can see, for example, with this one, Secret Wars issue number 9. With this book, it's a virgin print of the book, and the reason why I search for this book in particular is super low print run, really hard to find nice gray. Most of the copies you'll see out there are just beats. A lot of people didn't care about this final issue so much. They're just oh, second print, who cares when this book came out? But now this book is just difficult to find. There's 0 copies on the CGC or CBCS census, so book is difficult to get a copy of. There aren't very many on eBay, maybe 1 or 2 at any given time, and typically the asking prices are higher than what you'd expect them to be. So in this case, hey, if I find a copy for a good price, I'm picking it up because it's just hard to find. There aren't very many. So yeah, that's kind of second printings and variants. It's more for me looking for scarce books or just books that I really enjoy the artwork of. Okay, next one, and this one, another one that other people might not really be doing so much, but that is going after low print run indie books. So indie books, I don't always go for them. It has to be something that I enjoy personally. But with this, hey, low print run, harder to find book, and definitely has some collectability behind it. And that's what I look for in these indie books. I'm not going after image books because typically those don't really hold value even for a lot of the newsstands from less popular series, or even like more modern indie books. It has to be something that's like special, that's harder to find for me to like really want to invest money in it. Stuff that has like potential value, going forward. So with this book, there was 1,000 of them printed for this first print. All of them are signed and numbered, and the book is pretty hard to find. Even in good condition, it's hard to find. And just with this book, yeah, definitely gonna pick up copies if I see them at a good price. So that's what I look for in indie books, and yeah, it's something I collect, but not quite as much as some of the other stuff I'll be talking about. Okay, next up. Now, this is kind of a 2-for-1 that I'm going to be talking about. It's going to be covering 2 different subjects, but just with one book, and that is Batman Adventures number 12. Now, what I like to do is I like to go after DC keys, especially the bigger ones, because number one, DC books are still super undervalued if you compare them to Marvel. Like, DC books, like something like this, if it was like a Marvel book, it would be probably like 5 or 10 times as much. It would be just way more expensive, or probably not 5 or 10 times, but it would be much more pricey if you're just looking at comparison company to company. So DC for me is just a solid investment because, well, the books are still not at the highest value they could be, and also DC, if they ever do start getting stuff together, like release a good film franchise, that's more universal, kind of like Marvel, where more people are searching it out and enjoying it than just diehard fans or people who like it for one reason or another, but more of a broad audience appeal, then yeah, DC could really go places really fast, and they already have like really good. I'm talking about, and I should probably clarify before I talk about this, but they have really good animated TV shows. Like, their animated TV shows have pretty much always been solid, except for like a few, and their live action TV shows, they're kind of mixed. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, but anyways, DC just has a ton of potential, and if that ever takes off, DC books, the investment will easily pay off. And I'm not even going to buy DC books at their current retail because, well, who wants to buy at retail? But if you're able to find them, then it's awesome because it's just solid. In my opinion, of course. That is my opinion. And then, second topic, and when I tilt the camera down a little bit, is newsstand variants. And not like newsstands from the 70s or 80s, because it literally makes almost no difference for the ones from the 70s or 80s. Like, the value just isn't really that different. But you start getting into the 90s, you get into the 2000s, 2010s, anything like that, the value gap and disparity becomes bigger and bigger. And I think like 2010s, like keys from 2010s or 2000s that are newsstands, there's so much of a value difference. So searching down those newsstands is good. And a lot of times, like, even I have missed a book that's a newsstand, that's a key, and just thought, oh yeah, it's direct. But you're paying attention, and you're able to realize, hey, that's a newsstand, that's really recent, then, hey, that could be a pretty good find. And, newsstands, even though they're not as, like, because a few years ago, there was a huge push for people buying newsstands, especially, like, recent ones, and that's kind of died down, so I would say it's just a solid investment to search down those newsstand keys, or even for 2010's non-key books that are newsstands, because, they can be worth as much as 3 or 4 times what the regular print run, like direct edition, is, even though they're so much more scarce. And yeah, that's just kind of my opinion on it. Newsstands are, in my opinion, if you're able to find ones that are related to key books, that's kind of best. But if you're able to find just, newsstands from the 2010s or 2000s that are affordable, even non-key ones that are like, you're buying them at the same price as the regular, then I do it every single time. Every single time I'm going for it. Okay, next up is, and now this is slab, so I use both arms for this. So much struggle, and that is modern age keys. in particular big keys, like big modern keys. Now I don't buy them as much as I used to, and I've kind of turned away from buying a lot of modern age books just because there's not as much precedence with them. And if you go back further, like blue chip keys and stuff like that, like Grails, bigger keys from back then, like Silver Age, even Bronze Age, do hold a lot better value than modern ones. And I'm talking like 1990s all the way up to now, like keys in that era. Now, I think that's still solid books to pick up, but I'm really only want to pick up like the bigger ones, like the more well-known books. And the reason for that is because number one, they're more desirable. For example, First Venom, First Deadpool, even though First Venom is technically a book from the 80s, still, in my opinion, kind of like fits in with the 90s books and modern age. It is still considered modern, but anyways, basically the bigger ones. That's what I want to go for. Like, for example, this Batman Adventures I was just talking about. So the reason I go for these bigger books is because desirability, and even though like the print runs were still pretty big for a lot of these, there are still enough people with interest in them that they continue to go up. The value or remains, pretty standard. But if you go back like 10 years, this book was nowhere close to its value now 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So in the long run, I see this book continuing to gain value, and I see modern age books for the most part continue to gain value. Now, there are a few exceptions, and the exceptions are when you have, like, let's say, Young Avengers 1. Now, that book went crazy through the roof. Then it plummeted back down. Now, it's above where it was at one time, but it's worth way less than peak value. And so I try to avoid buying books with, upcoming shows or movies behind them, because that's usually when books start to get hot. I just talked about this with, like, my spec videos, basically buying at the right time. Buy when the book is cold. Buy when a bunch of people are selling it, because when you're doing that, you're buying at basically the lowest market you'll be at for a while. And you can get lucky on auctions, buy below the FMV sometimes. So, yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on it. Buying modern books isn't a bad thing, and there's definitely money in it. So, yeah. Okay, next up, and I had kind of a hard time deciding which book I wanted to use as an example for this, but it's basically, and I'm going to have to rotate the camera again. Oh no, I had to move the camera. It's so much struggle. But that's X-Men, like for this example, X-Men 12. And basically that's major or large, like major keys, grails from the 1960s, 70s, Silver Age, Bronze Age type of stuff. Anything from back then that's a major book. I don't consider this a major book, just in my opinion. Now, my copy isn't perfect, nowhere close to it, but, if you're looking at, like, the bigger ones, like, let's talk X-Men 1 or X-Men 12 and, like, really high grade, those books will retain value. I mean, this book is still retaining value after all these years, and the reason these books retain value is that they're pretty much universally, like, enjoyed, loved, whatever you want to call it, and they're always desirable. Because books from the 1960s or older, or even like 70s, you don't see as many high-grade copies. It's really hard to find like really nice copies, so people are always looking for those. And in the low-grade copies, those ones still hold a lot of value, because for those people who can't afford the higher-grade ones, or people who are like, just want to own a copy, or even people that want to invest in these books, buying low-grade isn't always bad, and, a part of that is that a lot of these books you'll find are going to be in lower grade. And because of that, the books retain value because people still want them. It's not like these books are going anywhere in demand or even in popularity. What's the... Oh, no. Semi Comics, I believe that's what they're called. They do like a hot, like, 100 list of the year for, like, these bigger books. Now, sure, some of the books do cool off or even leave the list, but if you go, like, long haul, like going back years, a lot of these books, resurface or even go up a pretty insane amount in value, even if there's, like, nothing planned or, like, no movies or TV shows around them. These books still retain or even gain value year after year. Sure, with any book, you might see a bit of a lull or the copy of it selling below fair market value or stuff like that happening. But it's a lot less likely with these books, and these books do continue to gain value and do continue to go up. So, in my opinion, and for me personally, this is one of the best investments, in my opinion, that you can make. And even if you can only for low grade, or it's hard to find these books at good values, because I know what it's like. I'm not like ultra wealthy. I can't go out and buy a bunch of these books. I had to wait my time, wait patiently for the right copy to come up, work out the right deal, and so forth. So again, it's kind of about patience with that. But anyways, that's kind of a tangent. It's just worthwhile to invest in these. And again, this is my opinion. I'm not telling you what to do or anything like that, but it's definitely a very good place to invest some money at. And even once again, if you're going for only for low grade, I would still go for it, because these books are just going to continue to go up and retain their value. All right, final part of this video, and this is the final one that I will be talking about. And there were a few others I want to talk about, but I just want to do like the major ones, and the stuff that I really consider investing in, what I consider a good investment. But the final one is what I think is arguably the first or second best investment. Like, it's basically tied for like bigger, older keys, and that is PreCode Horror, or really just a lot of PreCode books in general, but specifically horror. And a lot of people don't collect PreCode Horror. I get it. Like, a lot of people, it doesn't appeal to them, or it's like, I don't care about these books from way back then. Why should I care about them? It's just horror that's, arguably watered down compared to what we have now. And, I think it's pretty good to go for these PreCode Horror books. And I'm going to go over a couple of reasons why. I talked about this in the past with some of my other PreCode Horror videos, where I kind of discussed the topic of them. But here is why I invest in PreCode Horror. Number one, the books are scarce or even sometimes rare. So a lot of times these books, there aren't very many that survived, especially in good condition or in presentable grades. Number two is the history behind these books. There's so much history with these books, and you're looking at something from the 1950s, and these books survived through like book burnings. They survived through most likely multiple owners, multiple different stores, and they've made it like around 70 years in the future. And some of them are still readable, some of them are graded, but they've survived all of that. And there's a lot of historical importance with these books as well. If you're looking at Seduction of the Innocent, the the Comics Code Authority, the CCA. If you look at how books were censored after these ones came out, and after everything that went down with the Senate and the hearings, these books do have a lot of historical significance. And for example, this book was used in Seduction of the Innocent, was used in the book that helped to get these books to stop being published. So yeah, it's really just crazy. Let's see. Also, a lot of really amazing artists came up during this period. In particular, some of the ones that I really enjoy, like Saul Brodsky. A lot of his artwork, he came up during this period, did a lot of work on these books, so you can kind of go back to his older work. Stan Lee, for example, wrote some of these horror stories and did a lot of the editing, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. My mind kind of went a little bit blank. I'm just thinking editing, but Stan Lee did some of the work on these books. That's cool. So you can kind of go find some of his oldest work through like PreCode Horror, just PreCode books in general. Who else am I trying to think of? Oh no, I'm forgetting his name now. L.B. Cole. His artwork is amazing, and you'll see a lot of his artwork with PreCode books. His horror art, his crime, western, whatever it may be. His artwork is amazing and still very desirable today. And then also you got really famous stories from these books. Like, a lot of these books really push the boundaries, and if you're looking for like boundary pushing stories from back then, There's some really enjoyable ones. Really good storytelling. I think EC Comics, in my opinion, still does it the best. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons to collect these. But if anything, it's a solid investment. And you know, these books, they're just going to become, in my opinion, harder and harder to find, especially in nice condition. First off, secondly, these books will never not be desirable, and I know that's a double negative, but they will always be desirable. Ha, the opposite. Well, the same statement, but saying it a different way. Yeah. But these books will always be like sought after. And if you look at these books for the last 20, 30 years, you can trace these books all the way back, like sales history, back that far just to see what they're valued at, if not further. And these books just increase year over year over year. And within the last 3 years, in particular, 3, 4 years in particular, these books have skyrocketed. Like, even the ones that were considered bulk, that were like, $20, $30 books maximum. Like, not maximum, but, for the average grade. Those books are now 100 plus dollars easily. This book I saw sold listings on, I think it was Heritage Auctions, as low as like $70, $50 or less. And now this book, you'd be lucky to find it for under $200 in any grade. So yeah, there's just that push, and I don't think these books are going to go anywhere in value. I think the whole thing is that these books are going to just keep on increasing in value. And I also think there's a lot of covers and a lot of like books from back then that really haven't caught on as much as they should. There are certain covers that aren't super well known, but are like some of the craziest covers out there for this era, and they are not selling for like anywhere near as close as like some of the other better known ones, because there's like 5, maybe 10 that people always want, that are always popular in PreCode Horror. But there's a bunch of other books that have started to catch on, started becoming more famous, more popular to pick up. And I can see that continuing as more of these books kind of become well known or desirable. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on investing. That's what I invest in. And if you enjoyed my video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Check me out on Instagram. And I'm sorry if there's any background noise. There is some construction going on down the street. So, yeah, sorry about that, guys. If any of that background noise is coming through, I really had no control over it. So, yeah, peace. See you guys in the next video.